All right, well, welcome back to the Press Box Podcast. This is episode 113, and this is going to be our Super Bowl preview slash NFC AFC Championship recap episode. We'll start with recapping the Bengals win over the Chiefs, as well as the Rams win over the 49ers. And then we'll talk about that Bengals-Rams Super Bowl matchup coming up here. Talk about position by position, break it down, who we think has the edge, talk about some of the X factors, the coaching matchups, and then ultimately give our picks for the Super Bowl. So it's going to be a really good episode. Hope you enjoy it. Before that, let's, as we always do, talk about our Twitter account at PressBoxPod on Twitter. We'll be lively here before the Super Bowl. We'd love to interact with you guys, so be sure to follow us on there, as well as look us up on iTunes, rate and subscribe. Leave us a comment what you like about the show, suggestions, things like that as well, which always helps us. So without further ado, let's get into our Super Bowl preview episode 113 of the Press Box Podcast.
Okay, welcome back to the Press Box Podcast. I'm your co-host, Ralph Miranda. I'm joined by my other co-host, Joseph Miranda, and of course, our producer, Nathan Miranda. Today, we're going to discuss the recap of the two conference championship games, the AFC and NFC conference championship games that were played a couple Sundays ago. And then, of course, we're going to preview Super Bowl 56, which this year will be hosted by the Los Angeles Rams, who happen to also be in the Super Bowl at SoFi Stadium, in SoFi Stadium. I guess it could be that as well. SoFi Stadium in Southern California, the Rams' new home that they share with the Los Angeles Chargers. I think it's kind of interesting. We went 54 Super Bowls with a team never playing in the Super Bowl in their home stadium, and now we've had it happen 2 years in a row, with the Buccaneers playing in Tampa last year and the Rams playing in Los Angeles this year. So I guess I'll get it started by turning it over to you, Joseph. And we both watched the conference championship games. Let's start with the Bengals and the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. I don't think anybody, us included, would ever have said at the beginning of the season that the Cincinnati Bengals were going to be the AFC representative in the Super Bowl.
No, not at all. And I think that I even remember talking on this podcast about how that, we were impressed with the Bengals, but they weren't ready. They were possibly a playoff team, but weren't really ready to take that leap yet to being a contender. And here they are in the Super Bowl, which by definition, you're a contender if you get to the Super Bowl. So, like you said, I was on a plane during the championship game, so I didn't get to watch as much as normal, but they get to see a little bit. And going into Arrowhead and beating the Chiefs, like, they have a legitimate shot to win the Super Bowl, I think. And it's not. I don't think it's one of these where it's going to be a blowout. I think they're going to be in the game. And I kind of jokingly said that Joe Burrow should retire either now or either way after the Super Bowl, because like this is like the pinnacle of his career, just coming off the college national championship. But he's I'd say arguably the best young quarterback in the game now.
Yes.
And maybe the best based on what he's done here. And he gives them a legitimate shot with Joe Mixon being a very good running back. I think that they've far exceeded my expectations as a team.
Yeah, Joe Burrow, when you were talking about what he's been able to accomplish and jokingly saying he could retire, he's kind of like the Joe Namath of this era. Joe Namath in just I think it was his fourth year, I think it was his fourth year with the Jets, maybe fifth, but I think it was fourth. They win the Super Bowl, and then they really didn't do anything the rest of his career. And he kind of pyramided that into a Hall of Fame career. And Joe Burrow may do the same thing.
Well, Joe Burrow's in the NFL, so he's already a Hall of Famer.
He got to the Super Bowl. Yeah,
He got to the Super Bowl or like earlier than people expected. Hall of Fame. And he's a quarterback. Hall of Fame.
Right. Well, I just think it's. Let me talk a little bit about Joe Burrow. Joseph, you mentioned that he's arguably or could be the best young quarterback in the game today. There's a lot of good young quarterbacks, obviously. I mean, you can think about Justin Herbert out in with the Los Angeles Chargers. I mean, you've got, of course, the rookie quarterbacks that have come on or look like they're going to be pretty good with Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville and, Zach Wilson at the New York Jets.
Does he look like he's going to be good?
Huh?
Does he look like?
Well, I'm just talking about young quarterbacks, that have been in the league here for a while.
There's some buzz around. You know what I mean?
There's some buzz around. That's right. You got Patrick Mahomes, obviously, who's still considered a young quarterback.
Did you include Sam Darnold in that discussion?
So I don't know that I put Sam. Josh Allen. I mean, we're forgetting about Josh Allen, right? All right. My point, though, is not to name all these guys. It's just to say that what impresses me about Joe Burrow is, last year the Bengals won, I think, 4 or 5 games. Burrow tore his ACL kind of 2/3 of the way through the season. The Bengals really never recovered from that. Not only does the guy recover from that, he comes back with a lot of moxie. He's not afraid to stand in the pocket, not afraid to run. You can tell that he's a great leader. And the thing that impressed me about him against the Titans and against the Chiefs, the Titans sacked him 9 times. The guy never threw the ball into harm's way, kind of like we saw Kyler Murray do that against the Rams in their first playoff game. We saw Jimmy Garoppolo do that against the Rams. Never put the ball, took his sacks when he knew he was going to get sacked, came back to fight another day. And then against the Chiefs, a couple times they had him sacked there late in the game and he would break free and run for key first downs. The guy's got an innate ability to just throw the right pass at the right time and to make it on target. He just seems like an assassin. I just think that he's the guy right now that you have to say is the number one young quarterback going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And it's kind of inarguable at this point. I mean, again, whether you include Patrick Mahomes exactly in that list or not,
right.
The fact that he's gotten to a Super Bowl now and taking the Bengals of all teams, not a historically great franchise like he steps into the Steelers or the Cowboys or somebody like that, but the Bengals. I mean, I don't think anybody saw this coming this early for Joe Burrow, and he deserves a lot of credit, definitely.
Yeah, and not only did he take the Bengals are considered to have one of the more porous offensive lines in football when you look at playoff teams, and he was able to weather that.
Romo kept mentioning that in the AFC Championship game, how bad how the offensive line was not that good.
Let's talk a little bit about the Chiefs real quick. I mean, here's a team that has hosted. We mentioned this, I think, on a previous podcast. They were the first team in NFL history to host 4 consecutive conference championship games. They got beat by the Patriots in 2018, beat the Titans. I believe it was the Titans in 2019. Of course, last year they won the AFC Championship game against the Bills, and then of course this year we're in it against the Bengals. So the Chiefs are a good football team. What really kind of interested me about this game is, and I'll let you guys kind of talk a little bit about it, is, the Chiefs had a 21-7 lead, correct? Right before halftime. And Nathan and I were talking a little bit before we started taping. The Chiefs had the ball on the 2-yard line right before halftime.
I think it was 21-10.
21-10, excuse me. You're right. 21-10. But they had the ball on the 2-yard line, couldn't punch it in. And, I'm wondering, should they have kicked a field goal there? I mean, if you go up 24-10, it's a 2-score game still. You get some points on the board there.
I don't hate the fact they didn't kick a field goal, but they called a ridiculous play.
Right.
They were on I don't know what yard line, within the 5, I think.
Right. Within the 5 for sure.
There was 5 seconds left. I don't think they had any timeouts. Whether they did or not, there's only 5 seconds left.
Right.
I don't think they had any time. They obviously didn't have any timeouts because of how the play's about to play out. There's 5 seconds left, and they throw a little bubble screen, and they tackle the guy on the 1, and that's it.
Right.
How do you not throw the ball in the end zone? Or I don't know. It's like he throws it, laterally to a guy with 5 seconds on the goal line, and great play by the defense to tackle him short of the.
Well, and another thing that was kind of interesting to me, in the first half, the Chiefs pretty much had their way with the Bengals in the first half. Mahomes was on target. They were moving the football. They scored 21 points. It was pretty much the Chiefs' show. In the second half, logic would tell you that when you go in the locker room, your defensive coordinator for the Bengals would have said, look, we got to get some pressure on Mahomes. But no, he went the exact opposite way. Not only did he not go for pressure, he rushed two guys at some point in time, and sometimes sent a blitz from the corner or from some guys he wasn't expecting. And if you watch that second half, Mahomes was just confused. I mean, he held the ball so long, it kind of reminded me of the Super Bowl last year against the Buccaneers. You got to give kudos to the Bengals defensive coordinator with a tremendous second half adjustment to really confuse Mahomes a little bit, force him to hold the ball a little longer than expected, and then bring some pressure, maybe with some delayed blitzes from corners and safeties.
Yeah, the Bengals defensive line looked really good. I was impressed with them.
They did.
Especially number 94. I forget his last name now, but there was a play late in the game. I'm sure I can talk about late in the game. The Chiefs had a first and goal, I think,
right,
down 3.
Right.
I thought for sure they were going to score, and then the Bengals wouldn't have much time left.
Right.
And, whatever. But then they got down to third and goal, and Mahomes is running around back there. And they had number 94, D lineman. He looked like he was on a QB spy, right? He didn't rush. He dropped back. Looked like he was spying Mahomes. And then eventually, I don't know if they told him, hey, after so many seconds, if he's not scrambling, go ahead and rush him. Because sometimes I think they'll tell him that.
Right.
Or if it was his decision. If it was his decision, I give him kudos on it, because Mahomes is sitting back with a lot of time, because they're not really rushing anybody. And this guy just decides he's gonna forget about his. He's going to press the issue, basically, and he shoots through there and strips Mahomes, and I think they fall on the Chiefs to kick the field goal. But it was a great play by him.
It was a great play. And then you've got that other play. You've got there's lots of plays in the game, but just the ability of the Bengals to hang in there and not get too away from their game plan. They ran the ball very effectively, the Bengals. I mean, they had about 116 yards rushing on the day, which is not bad when you look at the Chiefs. The Chiefs really were not well. I guess the Chiefs kind of ran. If you throw in the quarterback, they kind of ran for about 100 yards or so. So not too bad. But another thing that was interesting about the Bengals too is probably the Chiefs went into that game saying we're going to take away Jamar Chase. We're not going to let him beat us, and they double covered him a lot. T. Higgins stepped up, 6 catches for 103 yards. Joe Mixon had 3 catches out of the backfield, and Tyler Boyd 4 catches for 19 yards, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're going to take Chase out of the game, Higgins and Boyd have got to step up, and they did that against the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too, because it just shows that they do have multiple weapons. It's not just all Jamar Chase. Had a great season overall, but definitely got hot at the right time down the stretch for the Bengals. I mentioned Joe Mixon earlier, but you mentioned T. Higgins as well. Right. And, that's Joe Burrow, as good as he is, he's not working with the MD deck either, right? So,
right.
That's going to be a formidable asset that they have against the Rams, that Rams defense. And we'll talk about the Rams here in a little bit, I'm sure, but that's a great point. Just the fact that it's not just Burrow and Chase. There's definitely more options for the Bengals.
Let me ask you guys this question. We talked about the Chiefs have been in hosted 4 straight AFC Championship games. They won a Super Bowl. They lost the Super Bowl. Now they've lost the AFC Championship game. They struggled this year. Remember, they started 3-4 and then turned it around a little bit. Are we seeing, how you see teams that are good for a while, they start to build, kind of like the Buffalo Bills are right now. Then they get to a certain point. Are we seeing maybe the Chiefs decline a little bit, or do you guys think they're going to be back in the same form next year?
I think you're seeing a little bit of the start of the decline. Like we talked about this too during the season where, you said they were 3-4, and then I think at some point, or maybe in that point exactly, they played the Giants and like a crucial game for them and won, obviously. But I think that some of these previous Chiefs teams would not have started 3-4,
right?
And he probably would have beaten the Bengals, if not handily, somewhat handily, right?
Right.
I think as good as the Bengals are, they caught the Chiefs at the right time in their little window here, where, I don't obviously, if I had to bet money right now, I would say they don't get to the 5th straight AFC Championship game.
Right.
Freak has to end sometime. Like, they're not just going to do that forever. So, yeah, I think that their peak window is probably closed, and it's kind of downhill from here.
Yeah, I think I said this during the middle of the season when they were having their struggles, that I think the Chiefs are going to be looked back on kind of like the Bills of the early '90s, except for the fact that the Chiefs did win a Super Bowl.
Right.
But I'm talking more about how they're going to be dominant for half a decade, but not have a whole lot to show for it, or at least not have what you'd expect them to have with their talent to show for it, which is just one Super Bowl. I think if you look back on this team, because they've had the same team now for the last 4 years, basically, right? You'd have expected them to, I think, to have more than one Super Bowl victory,
right?
And I think I think the window is. I think the window for this team is passed. I think Mahomes may win the Super Bowl in his career at some point with the Chiefs, but this team, Mahomes, Kelsey, Hill, all these guys, I think that's over with. Yeah, over with from the standpoint they're not going to win the Super Bowls. They might get to the AFC Championship game again next year,
right? Or
in the year after that, they may beat another Super Bowl next year, but I don't think they're going to win another Super Bowl.
Right.
I think that's done with.
And then contract issues again, which come into play. Who can you keep? Who can you not keep? But I think had the Chiefs won, obviously, if they would have won last year, and if they'd have gotten to the Super Bowl this year and won, they would have won 2 Super Bowls in 3 years, or 2 Super Bowls back to back. I think when you look at a dynasty type team, I think you have to look at, teams like, the first Packer team, maybe the Dolphins, who won 2 in a row and got to it, or got to 1, lost it, then won 2 in a row. You got the Dallas Cowboys, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Broncos won back-to-back Super Bowls, the 49ers with their run, and then, of course, the Patriots. The Chiefs have been a very, very good team, but I think to solidify their place in the annals of the NFL, I think they've got to win another Super Bowl during this run. And I agree with you guys. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you look at this team, you expect them to have more than one Super Bowl with
right.
the talent they have,
right?
And the quarterback they have, but I don't think it's going to happen.
No, I agree with that. All right, let's move on to the Rams and the 49er game. That was an interesting game. Joseph's adage. What is it, Joseph? It's hard to beat a team 3 times in a row, 3 times in the season.
3 times in one season, yeah.
3 times in one season, right? And the 49ers had beaten the Rams twice this year, and more concerning to the Rams, in week 18, the final week of the season, the Rams were playing to win the division. They had to have the Cardinals lose or they had to win. Turns out the Cardinals lost. But then the 49ers were playing for a playoff spot because the Saints ended up winning. So the 49ers had to win, and they were down 17-0 in that game, came back and won to put themselves in the playoffs. And it also pushed the Rams to the 4th seed as opposed to the 3rd seed, which, is neither here nor there right now. But what I'm trying to say is the 49ers were able to execute in a game that meant just as much to the Rams as it did to them. And then, of course, they beat the Rams early in the season. So going into this game, I kind of had the feeling that, the 49ers are going to win this game. What did you guys think about that?
Yeah. Going in, even though, like I said, it's hard to beat a team 3 times, I did pick the Rams. So I thought the Rams would win. But, the 49ers, I would call them, especially throughout the season down the stretch, like a sneaky, very good team. Kind of snuck up on some teams, I think, and you didn't really think much of them throughout the season. I think at one point they were 5-5 or 6-5, and
right.
They just kind of kept winning down the stretch, and put some wins together in the playoffs. And I think they were a formidable opponent. Like they deserved to be where they got to, but I picked the Rams not only to win. Well, they didn't cover if you're going by the spread, technically,
right?
But I did pick them to win, and I think throughout the course of the season, they showed they were a better team, and I think it ultimately proved that way.
Nathan?
Yeah, just in our preview episode, I referenced your little tough to beat a team 3 times. Right. I was, not that I couldn't believe I was saying you referencing it because I know I jumped down your throat last time about using that, but I thought it was more I thought was more disconcerting for the 49ers that they just beat the Rams in basically the exact same game the last week of the season.
Right.
So like they're basically going to replay that game a couple of weeks later. It's tough to win again.
Right.
Had they played that game like week 10 or something, I wouldn't have been as big on the three wins thing. It was just that was so close together, and it was in LA both games.
Right.
But I thought the Rams were going to win. I thought they were going to win fairly handily. To Joseph's point, how the 49ers were a sneakily great team. I didn't think. I guess this is why I didn't think this, because they were sneaky, but I didn't think they were that good all year. Even when they were like winning and people were talking about them late in the year, I didn't think they were that good.
Sneaky good, not sneaky great. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I was surprised when they beat the Packers, just like I was surprised when they beat the Rams at the last game of the season. But I still thought the Rams were going to win. I was hoping the 49ers would win, but I mean, I don't dislike the Rams, really. I was hoping the 49ers would win.
Well, the interesting thing about that game, the Rams, we'll talk about their defense when we get into our preview mode here for the Super Bowl, but they held the 49ers to 50 yards rushing. And, the interesting thing about that is, you remember the 49ers were ahead in this game 17-7. In fact, they were ahead 17-7 late in the third quarter and into the fourth quarter. So you would think that they would try to run the football in that situation to control the clock, and they weren't able to do it. So the Rams basically said, look, we're going to put the ball in Garoppolo's hands, and we're going to force him to beat us. And he really couldn't. I mean, he was 16 of 30, about a 50% pass completion percentage, threw for 232 yards, did throw 2 touchdowns, but was intercepted once. And that interception was the one that sealed the football game.
That wasn't a real one. I mean, it was third and long, and he was about to get sacked. It was the last. It was like the last thing they had left.
But the one thing about Garoppolo, I like Jimmy Garoppolo, but the one thing about him is you don't see the 49ers throw a lot of passes outside of the hash marks. Garoppolo throws a lot of his passes on screens, a lot of passes to Kittle across the middle, a lot of slants across the middle. He doesn't seem to be able to stretch the field horizontally and get that ball outside of the hash marks. And I think Joe Burrow showed his ability to do that against the Titans and against the Chiefs. Stafford showed his ability to do that throughout the postseason and throughout the season. And I think that's what hampers the 49ers right now. Now, is this guy they drafted, Trey Lance, the answer? I don't think so. But the 49ers, I think, to be able to make that step up, they've got a tremendous defense. They got some really good running backs. I mean, when you look at guys like Deebo Samuel and Elijah Mitchell, I mean, 2 guys that are just awesome running backs. You got to have a quarterback that can push that ball down the field.
Yeah, I think your description of Jimmy Garoppolo is like the perfect for his career. They forced Jimmy Garoppolo to beat them, and he couldn't quite do it.
Right.
He's a good quarterback. He's an above average quarterback.
Very good. Yeah.
But he just doesn't have quite what it takes to get it done completely. There's something just a little bit missing there, that he can't put it all together and do it. But I thought so. I thought that was just a great way to describe him.
Right.
Yeah. I'm more of a Garoppolo apologist than you all are, I guess. But I can't argue with that, really. I mean, he, like you said, he's kind of like a I don't want to say he's a game manager, because he's better than a game manager, but it's weird, like you said, he's like an above average quarterback in the league who, I don't know, like you said, I don't really have anything to add to that. I can't really dispute it, I guess. But I do think at times too, I think he's an easy target. I mean, 49ers lose, it must be Garoppolo. Yeah. I mean, at this point, it's kind of a cliche now that, it's Garoppolo. Is it really? Maybe it was in this game, but was it? I don't know. Yeah. Go ahead.
Another thing that I won't say black mark, but you look at George Kittle. I mean, Nathan and I were talking about this a few weeks ago. If I was drafting fantasy again next year, I probably would take Kittle over Kelsey. That's just an opinion.
I also would too, because I think the whole little scheme in Kansas City is going downhill quick.
Right. But my point is, he's a playmaker. Okay. Deebo Samuel is a playmaker. Kittle had 2 catches for 27 yards. He did have a touchdown, but one of your main playmakers, you only got him the ball 2 times. Now, I don't know how many targets. Well, he had 5 targets. Okay. So that's not enough.
Did you think the defense was looking for that one?
Well, they probably were, but don't you think the defense was looking for Kelsey and Tyreek Hill? Kelsey had 10 catches. Tyreek Hill had 7.
Yeah, and you named 2 guys. You can't double cover both guys.
I understand that, but you got Debo Samuel.
He's in the backfield all the time, Debo Samuel.
You got Brandon Ayuk. I mean, you got other guys, Juwan Jennings. I mean, my point is, you got to fix. Maybe it's the offensive coordinator. I mean, you got to find ways to get the ball to your playmakers.
You tell me that the Rams defensive coordinator stay up late at night. Who we double cover? Juwan Jennings or George Kittle? Or Brandon Ayuk. Tough decision.
Well, yeah. So let's talk about the Rams too, because they're a team that went all in on and it was kind of a multi-year thing where they went and got Jalen Ramsey. They went and they traded for Von Miller this year. They got Matthew Stafford. They
got Odell Beckham.
Right. They got Odell Beckham halfway through the season. So this scenario where a team went all in and it's worked out for them so far. Like they whatever they gave up, all the picks or the players, it's worth it to win a Super Bowl, and they're in position to do that.
I think it's worked out for them at this point, no matter what happens, because they got to the Super Bowl. I mean, even if they lose, I mean, anything can happen one game in the Super Bowl, but they got in there. That's what they wanted.
Right.
Which I mean was and the Stafford thing is a little bit of like, I think it was a good move, obviously, but it was a little bit of a bold move because Jared Goff did get them to a Super Bowl. Like it's not like he was like totally unproven and like, oh, he can't get it done. Like he got him there. I mean, the Patriots beat him, right? Belichick outcoached McVay, but to go ahead and turn away from that and get Stafford, who again, look, I think it was the right move, but it was still a little bit of a risk.
I see what you mean, but I'm not going to give him that much credit for being that risky of a move. I mean, Goff also had a couple years after that to show that like he's probably not going to get you back to the Super Bowl,
right?
And I mean, and he did get into the Super Bowl, so I recognize that. But and I think I was one to say, are they really? I was one to say they're kind of comparable. I think at the time of the trade. I think I said that Stafford was better, but I didn't think he was that much of an improvement. So I have to eat my words on that a little bit. But he's at least not worse than Goff, so it's not that risky of a trade. If anything, you're just gonna be right back where you're at with Goff. You know what I mean?
Well, let's
like
look.
He didn't have any. There wasn't any chance that they were going to get Stafford and be worse of a team. Is my point. So it's not that.
I talked about Jimmy Garoppolo, 50% completion. Stafford was 67% completion, 31 of 45, 337, 2 touchdowns. How about Cooper Kupp? 11 catches, 142 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Odell Beckham could be the wild card for the Rams that wins them the Super Bowl. I mean, 9 catches, 113 yards. He actually in the last 6 or 7 games has looked like the Odell Beckham that we saw his first couple years with the Giants. I mean, he's really turned that team around. And then you got Cam Akers, who almost lost the Tampa Bay game for them by fumbling twice, but he had 13 rushes for 48 yards. He also had a catch. Sony Michel, another guy they picked up from the Patriots, 10 rushes for 16 yards, not much, but did catch the ball out of the backfield, I think, once or twice. My point is the Rams have a lot of weapons, and, when they're clicking, it's really hard to beat them. And then you look at that defense, and it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, definitely. I mentioned Jalen Ramsey. I know Aaron Donald's still there. They got Von Miller, who's a former Super Bowl MVP. So, we said it all year. They were one of the favorites, if not the favorite in the NFC, and it came to fruition for them.
All right, let's go into our Super Bowl preview mode here, and let's talk a little bit about the Super Bowl. I'm going to throw out the positions to you and mention some names, and I want you guys to kind of tell me who you think has the edge. Okay, I mean, obviously quarterback is easy. There's only 2 names, right? Stafford and Burrow. Here's their playoff stats through 3 games. They've each played 3 playoffs games. Stafford 72% completion, 302 yards a game, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception, 2 TD runs on his own. Burrow, 69% completion, 281 yards passing per game, 4 TD passes, 2 interceptions, no TD runs. Who do you think has the edge at quarterback?
Yeah, you know what? This may be kind of a contrary opinion, but I'm going to give it to Burrow because, like you said, they both played 3 playoff games,
right?
You'd think, the veteran Stafford, but this is his first time really. I think he made the playoffs 1 year with Detroit, but
he did, yeah.
Yeah. So, but first time in the Super Bowl, on the second time in the playoffs in his 13 years, and then Burrow's like, he's played in more big games recently. I mean, I know college is not the same, but 2 years ago he played the national championship game, which is the college equivalent of the Super Bowl, right? So
right.
He's got more recent big game experience where the pressure is similar, as far as the team you're playing for. But I'm gonna give it to Burrow here just for those reasons.
You agree, Nathan?
Hey, you've convinced me. I initially was thinking Stafford, but you make a lot of good points. I'm going to say Burrow also.
Yeah,
I'm also going to say Burrow because he's got like the hotter hand right now. Like he's riding high. He's feeling himself.
Right.
Right. And he kind of almost has nothing to lose. I mean, like,
exactly.
He's already done what he needs to do this playoffs, and more so, he's already established himself. Stafford a little bit. I feel like is, he needs this more than Burrow needs it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Not only because his career is closer to an end than Burrow's is, but just because like he needs to prove that he can win a Super Bowl. Like Burrow's is like already like it's kind of he's already proved. Burrow's proved what he needs to prove in these playoffs already. Stafford entered these playoffs needing to prove he can win a Super Bowl. This is what he has to do.
Right.
No, I think that's excellent analysis from both of you, and I agree with you. I would give it to Burrow. Let's look at running backs. The Rams have Cam Akers, Sony Michel, and Darrell Henderson, who I'm not even sure Darrell Henderson is going to be really that much available. He's been injured. So the question mark there. The Bengals, Joe Mixon, Samaje Perine, and Chris Evans, who ran the ball pretty well in the playoffs for them. Let me throw out some things for you real quickly. The Rams are only averaging 2.9 yards a carry in the whole postseason, so they haven't been able to run the ball very well. They also forgot Sony Michel, but like I said, Henderson hasn't played since December due to a knee injury. The Bengals, on the other hand, have only averaged about 3.8 yards a carry in the playoffs. But Mixon's had a great year with 1,200 yards rushing, 16 total touchdowns, and he did make the Pro Bowl, and he has topped 100 scrimmage yards over his last 2 games. So what do you think about running backs there?
I'm going to give it to Mixon. I think that, like you said, he's kind of a one-man show for them back there. He kind of does it all. The Rams have used 2 to 3 guys all season. Right. I think even going back to our fantasy preview, I like Mixon as a running back, so I'm going to give it to him.
Nathan,
I give it to him and Perine. Or is that how you say it?
Yeah, Samaje Perine.
Yeah, those 2 guys are better than both the Rams have.
Fair enough. I agree with you. All right, let's look at receivers. This is where it gets interesting. The Bengals, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. I'm not going to even mention the other 2 names because they're not really.
Ouch.
They're not really factors.
They're not listening.
All right. If they're listening, I apologize. CJ Uzomah and Drew Sample. For the Rams, obviously, we got Cooper Kupp, who was the Triple Crown winner in the NFL, led the league in yards receiving, catches, and touchdown catches. Odell Beckham Jr., Van Jefferson, Tyler Higbee, who might not even play the Super Bowl after suffering a sprained medial collateral ligament against the 49ers, Kendall Blanton, and Ben Skoranek, who is another tight end. Blanton's also a tight end, I believe. So this is where it gets interesting. I mean, what do you think about the receiving corps here?
I think I have to give this one to the Rams. If you say that Jamar Chase and Cooper Kupp are similar, I think you give the tiebreaker to Kupp because, like you said, he won the Triple Crown as far as receivers. I think he's got the NFL experience. He's played more years than Jamar Chase. And again, the Super Bowl is a different animal, right? It's
right.
Its own thing. But I think just his experience in the league, the fact that he was the leading receiver this year, I think you give him a little bit of the edge over Chase. And then when it comes down to the second receivers, I think Odell Beckham is ultimately better than T. Higgins right now as a receiver.
Right.
So I think that the second receiver almost kind of breaks the tie there, and then Van Jefferson I think is better than
Tyler Boyd
too.
Yeah.
So it's not like an overwhelming edge, but I'd give the edge to the Rams.
Right. Especially exactly what I was going to say. Kupp and Chase are comparable, but I mean, especially after the season Kupp had, you got to give it to Kupp. You got to give the edge to Kupp, and then Beckham. As much as whatever you want to say about off the field or his mentality, he's a better receiver than T. Higgins right now. The other ones are maybe comparable, but you just have 2-1 right there. So
Rams. No, I agree with that. I think obviously the Rams are going to try to take away Jamar Chase. More than likely, Ramsey's going to be covering him, so that should be an interesting matchup. And Higgins and Boyd are going to have to step up, kind of like they did against the Chiefs, for having any success. But the way Odell Beckham is playing and Cooper Kupp, he's just unbelievable. And then like Joseph said, you throw in Van Jefferson and even Kendall Blanton, the other tight end that filled in for Higbee in the second half of the 49er game. I think the Rams obviously have the advantage when it comes to receivers. Offensive line, I'm not going to talk too much about that. I think we already mentioned that the Bengals offensive line is really kind of their biggest concern. They've really not been able to protect Joe Burrow. And if they thought they had troubles protecting them against the Titans and the Chiefs, they're going to have even more trouble protecting them against the Rams. So I think it's obvious that the advantage there is going to go to the Rams when you look at the guys that they've got on that line and the fact that they've been able to pass block with more efficiency than the Bengals. So we'll just jump right over that. So let's go to the front seven defensive wise. Again, Nathan brought up a good point about the Bengals. I mean, they have a tremendous front seven. They play a 4-3. Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard, DJ Reader, and BJ Hill. BJ Hill, a guy that the Giants got rid of, obviously. And then at linebacker, Logan Wilson, Jermaine Pratt, Marcus Bailey. The Rams, on the other hand, 3-4. Aaron Donald, Sean Robinson, Greg Gaines. At linebackers, Von Miller, Leonard Floyd, Troy Reader, and Ernest Jones.
Yeah, I give it to the Rams. You've got, like I said, Super Bowl MVP and Von Miller, who's obviously has Super Bowl experience and was the difference maker in that game, you could say.
Right.
And then same with Aaron Donald's Super Bowl experience, and is arguably the best defensive player in football, depending on who you ask. So the Bengals don't have anybody really that matches those two guys and their big game experience. So I'm going to give the edge to the Rams.
Yeah, I agree. I like the Bengals defensive line, and they're better than a lot of D lines, I feel like. Mm-hmm. But not as good as the Rams. And then when you add the linebackers into it, the Rams. Or I think the Rams are, they take this pretty easily.
Well, I think I agree with you guys. I think the Bengals, they're not chopped liver. Those guys play really well. They have some good schemes, and they've certainly, wreaked a lot of havoc against some of the teams they've played.
Sam Hubbard was the guy I was trying to
Sam Hubbard, right. But then again, like you guys said, you look at the Rams. I mean, when you got Aaron Donald taking on double team blocks, that's going to free up guys like Floyd and Reader. And of course, Von Miller coming off the edge is just too hard to block. So it's going to be hard for Burrow against those guys, especially with the porous offensive line. Let's look at the secondary. Again, we don't follow a lot of these names, but I think the Rams I'll chime in. I think the Rams have the edge here. Jalen Ramsey, Darius Williams, David Long, Dante Dion, safeties Taylor Rapp, Nick Scott, and Eric Weddle, who came out of retirement to join the Rams here a few weeks ago. And then the Bengals, Chidobe Awuzie, who's been very good. Mike Hilton's been good. Eli Apple, who was original Giant draftee, has been horrible. Trey Flowers, Jesse Bates, Von Bell, Michael Thomas. But they've played very well. I mean, this year, the Bengals secondary has played pretty well in the playoffs against the Raiders, the Titans, and the Chiefs.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think that for me, this is I almost could say a toss-up. I think that I think as a unit, I'll give the edge slightly to the Bengals. Like you said, they've had such a good playoffs. And then, obviously Jalen Ramsey is a big name, and partly because he brings a lot of attention to himself. But, if you take him kind of out of the picture, I think overall as a unit, I'd give it to the Bengals, basically.
Nathan? What do you think?
It could, like I said, it could very well be a toss-up.
I'm going to give it to the Rams. Weddle has a lot of experience. Ramsey's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Eli Apple is a little questionable, maybe.
He's very questionable. And then, but here's an interesting thing for you. Cincinnati, remember, they played very well against Patrick Mahomes, and their 6 interceptions this postseason lead the NFL by a significant margin, which, they may not have a lot of star talent, and they may not be able to snuff out receivers, but they seem to make plays when they have to make them. And that could be a determining factor. And then special teams, I think it's pretty much a given. Evan McPherson, the Bengals kicker, is just in a zone right now. The guy's a rookie. He's kicked 2 field goals to send his team to the AFC Championship and to the Super Bowl.
Called at least one of them.
Called both of them. I heard he called both of them. Yeah.
Well, you might as well call the second one.
Well, yeah, even the second one, he said, guys, I guess we're going to actually go to a Super Bowl. So, of course, that was only 31 yards, a lot better than the 50-some yarder he kicked to go to the AFC Championship.
Wasn't, I mean, I don't want to say there wasn't any pressure. There's obviously pressure, but
sure.
But it was overtime. If they missed that, they go back on defense and they try to stop.
That's true. And he is 12 for 12 on postseason field goal attempts, which is pretty impressive for a rookie kicker. I think you got to give the edge to the Bengals there, if for nothing else, because of their kicker, especially the fact that he's been so good in the postseason. Then I'm not even going to get into coaching. I mean, everybody thinks that Sean McVay is kind of the darling, especially since he's already been to a Super Bowl. But the interesting thing here is he worked with Sean McVay from 2017 to 2018 before he left to go to Cincinnati. So it's an example here, or a situation where you have the master and the pupil, but both of them are extremely young.
I think McVay's probably learned from coaching against Belichick in the Super Bowl.
Probably.
I think he kind of he's better prepared after that.
Yeah. I neither here nor there. Coaches don't win games; athletes win games. So we'll see.
Game plans are important, though.
But I think the game's going to be a good game. I mean, I think the Rams are the early favorite here by about 4. That's probably going to change as we get closer to the game. But Nathan and I were talking here right before dinner that I think it's going to be an exciting football game, and I would have no problem with either team winning it. How about you, Joseph?
Yeah, I agree. That's good. Well, first of all, I agree with the fact it's going to be a good game. But trying to decide if I'd have a problem with the team winning, I ultimately wouldn't have a problem. I guess I'd like to see the Bengals win. That'd be
right,
kind of neat. But I will say that the only shocking outcome would be a Bengals blowout.
Right.
I'm blowing out the Rams. I wouldn't be totally shocked if the Rams blew out the Bengals.
Right.
Bit surprised. I don't think that's going to happen, but wouldn't be shocked. But I do expect a pretty close game, probably within 10 points or so either way.
Right.
I'm definitely looking forward to watching it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's going to be a good game, and I would agree that only shocking thing would be the Bengals blowing them out. I wouldn't mind if either team won, I guess. So it's going to be fun for me to watch it because, or you could say less fun because I wouldn't be as, passionately rooting for one team or the other, but
a bit more relaxed.
Right. But I hope the Bengals win. It'd be kind of neat to see them win. Although I would kind of feel bad for the Rams. They put all their cards on they put all their, what do you call it?
They put all their chips in the middle of the table, right?
Yeah. All their, what's the chickens in one basket? Is that a thing?
Eggs and chickens in one basket. Eggs in one basket.
Eggs in one basket. They put all their eggs. It's kind of the same thing. Chickens or eggs in one basket. So if they lose this, it's kind of a bummer. More so than usual. It's not like they have a team that's built to last.
Right.
Are we doing predictions? Is that what you said?
Well, let me say a couple things first, then we'll do some predictions. Had the Bengals beaten the Titans in the AFC Championship game, the Raiders, and maybe some other average team who was in the playoffs in the AFC, Steelers or the Colts or whatever, I'd say, it's going to be awful tough for them. But, they beat a Chiefs team in the second half there by shutting down Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce. They're going to be facing the same problem this week when you've got, Stafford, Beckham, and Kupp. So my point in saying that is I wouldn't put it past the Bengals to be able to come up with a plan to be able to slow the Rams down. I think the problem for the Bengals in this game is going to be their offense. They went against a Titans defense who was very good and sacked Burrow 9 times, but they were still able to move the football. Chiefs defense, very good, move the football. But this Rams defense, I think they're statistically the number 1 defense in the NFL, and it's going to be a little hard for them there. So I wouldn't put it past the Bengals at all, but I don't know. I'll reserve my prediction for last. Let's start with Joseph. Joseph, who's going to win?
Yeah, I'm going to say the Rams win the game. I'm going to say 27-21.
Nathan.
I think, initially I thought it'd be the Rams, but I'm going to say Bengals. Initially, the reason I thought it'd be the Rams is because the Bengals offensive line is suspect, and the Rams have a dominant pass rush. So
Right.
Burrow's gonna be running for his life all game. But I think this is one of the. I mean, I think on paper this game it's the Rams, but I feel like it's just one of those times when like everything is aligning for the Bengals. It's kind of feels like it's their season. Like
Yes.
I don't see them having this Cinderella story in the playoffs and then just having it end like this.
Right.
I feel like this is kind of like the Giants when they beat the Patriots in 07, right?
Right.
Like it's. I think they're going to win. It's just throw everything else out the window. They're going to win somehow. And, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say 27-24, and McPherson's going to kick the game-winning field goal.
Yeah, that's what I wasn't going to say the exact score, but I do think McPherson is going to come through again and kick the game-winning field goal. I think it's going to be maybe 20-17 Bengals. But I think it's going to be a really good football
But like
game.
Joseph said, is anybody going to be surprised though if the Rams like scoring the first two possessions is 14-0 quick?
No, but we've seen the Bengals come back from that the last two games, right?
I know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I think what's going to be more surprising to me is Joseph mentioned it is if the Bengals win this game handily, and it'll also be surprising to me if the Rams come out in the first half and lead by 2 or 3 touchdowns and then extend that lead in the second half. That would surprise me a little bit as well. So we'll see. It should be a tremendous game. Next week, we will try to get back in touch with you guys and talk about the Super Bowl recap. We'll find out what went on in the game, and we'll obviously dissect it and talk about what we can expect coming up in 2022 season. Lots of new things to talk about. We've got plenty of shows ahead to talk about all the things that have happened here in the last few weeks with coaching searches, a little bit of controversy in the NFL, lots of things going on. So that's been our episode for you here, our Super Bowl preview and our conference championship game recap. Make sure you stay with us and make sure you check us out on Twitter at PressBoxPod, on Instagram at PressBoxPod, and then, of course, on YouTube, the YouTube channel, the PressBox Podcast. So we've enjoyed bringing this to you. Make sure you communicate with us. We'll probably try to put a couple polls up and see what you think about who's going to win the Super Bowl this week. So for Joseph, for Nathan, I'm Ralph. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the PressBox Podcast.